Yeah, I didn't think this through.
Howdy. Today I'm reviewing two versions of Predaking from Transformers Prime, the Cyberverse Commander and the simplified Voyager. Why? Well, for the last wave of Prime toys, Hasbro upscaled 6 Cyberverse figures into Deluxe and Voyager class toys, including Predaking. Or so you'd think. There's actually some debate as to whether this Voyager is a heavily retooled upscale, or a new mold that just has things in common with the Cyberverse Commander. Which one is it? We will discover together, and hopefully, my head won't explode on the way. Predaking's beast mode is based on the European dragon from Greek mythology. He is a quadruped with a long neck and tail and huge bat-like wings. The general colour scheme of orange, black, grey with silver and yellow highlights fits a fire-breathing dragon and looks good on its own, though as you can clearly see, these two do not have the same deco, which applies to all the upscales to be fair. Focusing on the Voyager, I really like the translucent orange wings. This is how clear plastic should be used. In fact, most of the smoke grey is clear plastic. That I'm not so fond of. There are already cracks on the ports where you store the sword to form the tail. If it had to be translucent, I'd have preferred a blood red like in these pics, but that's Hasbro Photoshops for you. Amongst all the moulded details are the spikes, which, much to my surprise, are hard plastic. Normally for safety they'd use soft rubbery material, like they did on the other Voyager I believe. For a simplified figure, the articulation isn't bad. This Predaking is made up of hinges, swivels, and very strong ratchets. The wings deploy and retract, and his head can look up and down, though it's one solid piece, as is each rear leg. The lack of ball joints combined with the hard plastic results in a mostly robust figure. Not that I plan on testing that. To top it all off, for the price point, this figure is big. I mean really big. Here he is with Deluxe Skylinks and Voyager Darksteel. In this mode alone, Predaking truly earns his name with this toy. As for the Cyberverse Commander, well, the sculpted details are softer, the actual mold patterns are different, the wings look like they're made of feathers for one thing. His rear legs don't move except for transformation, and instead of ratchets we have ball joints. In other notes, the overabundance of orange certainly catches the eye. The proportions are a little off with the broad, bulky chest. And is it just me, or did they design this one to be permanently crouched? Check out how the rear legs are moulded. Despite all of that, it's not a bad dragon mode, but I think the new Voyager wins out. As you just saw, the transformations of both figures are pretty much identical, which is where the whole upscale debate comes in. Even then, on the new Voyager, the entire head and neck assembly simply folds back, whereas on the Cyberverse Commander it splits in half, and I prefer to rotate the backpack and position the pieces behind the wings like this. The whole point behind upsizing smaller figures was to establish Hasbro's goal of making future Transformers simple, but still fun to play with. Even though Darksteel and Skylinks aren't exactly brainbusters, this new Voyager Predaking feels simpler because of its fluency. It's also why the figure's so big. Less was spent on complex mechanisms or gimmicks, and instead they made the parts bigger. That's my theory anyway. Speaking of size, once again, the new Voyager towers over his minions, and fully extended he has a wingspan of over 15 inches. Apparently Beastfire Predaking is just as big and has a larger wingspan. It's also 3 times as expensive. The wings themselves aren't attached to his lower back like on the first Voyager, they sit high up on his shoulders. Another improvement. No new details are revealed, save for the paint apps on his face. I'd recommend touching up the mouth plate, and possibly the cyberglyphics with some silver if you're good at that sort of thing. Paint deficiency is all too common these days. Posability, on the other hand, is a lot better here. The forelegs/arms have roughly the same articulation. The robot head is on a swivel, and his hips and knees consist of ratchets and swivels. And that's all he needs. He's also very stable, thanks to all the ratchet joints in his large feet. My only complaint is that I wish there was some way for these dragon legs to store inside the robot legs. Granted, I don't display my figures facing the wall, but it still hurts how solid the toy looks. The Cyberverse commander follows a similar path, except the wings have a greater range of motion since they're on ball joints, providing you leave the dragon head as one solid piece. Also, these hips are on ball joints. The tails of both figures form their respective weapons, a pressure launcher for the commander, a sword for the new Voyager, though the latter comes with his own launcher, which can plug onto the sword/tail in either mode. Having both figures in hand, it honestly doesn't feel like I've bought the same toy twice, just in different sizes like a knockoff. They're practically different molds. They're both pretty cool overall, but if I had to pick one, the simplified Voyager is the definitive Predaking, in my opinion. Next I'm reviewing Energon Prowl. Until then, till all are one.